Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Music of the Week. As always, 6 albums to go through, so let's go through 6 albums. We begin with a band called 50 Lions and their new album, New Reality. So, I've actually known about these guys for about a decade and a bit by this point, because around the time I was getting into heavy music, or like circa 2012-ish, one of the bands I was really getting into, that was sort of my gateway band for getting into heavy music, was Parkway Drive. And the lead singer, Winston McCall, has a brother named Oscar, who is the lead vocalist of this band. However, part of the reason I didn't get to cover them sooner was because they haven't put out a full length since 2009. This is their first full length since then. Some sources say it's an EP, but I do count it as a full length, as do most sources, so I'm sticking with it. And also, their last EP was in 2015. And, yeah, I'm giving it an A though, because I really bloody like this one. First of all, I love the vocal work. Oscar is on par with how good his brother is. There's just really good work from the entire band. But, yeah, really good passion. I love how hard everyone works, but it is Oscar that does lead the charge, and lead the charge well. He's got a really good shouty scream to him. There's also really good lyrics. I like the themes of the current social climate and modern society decaying and not really doing a lot to improve that, but the writing has really good sort of like rally cry feel to it, and I quite enjoy that. Also like the instrumentation, really super heavy, probably my favourite thing about the album if I'm being completely honest. Solid breakdowns, really good drums, really good guitars, all working, just smashing up together. I quite enjoy it. Structure is a little bit weird though. If I have to be honest, it's maybe my least favourite thing, because I like the main through line, but the first half, this is not a long album by the way, 8 songs, 20 minutes, 54 seconds, thereabouts, right? But I feel like the first half is a bit too basic, which is weird because the second half is really bloody good and they get to experiment a bit more with the sound, and it's... I'm not a super huge fan of that. I feel like they could have just experimented more in general and maybe even added a few more songs. I did, however, quite enjoy the production. It's a lot cleaner than I was expecting it to be, and it's got this really heavy layering that works, and this is produced by Sam Bassel, who is a producer whose work I'm not too familiar with, but everything I've heard him do, I quite like what he does, so yeah, really good work there. It's really good heavy metalcore with a sort of more hardcore punk lean, I would say. I would say that these are sort of a slightly toned down version of Parkway Drive in general, but all in all, really good stuff, and for my first album by these guys, yeah, I quite enjoyed it, and it was definitely worth the wait. Please don't make me wait another 16 years, I don't think I can live that long. Next we go to a band that hasn't been around as long, but have actually put out quite a lot of work since first forming in 2021. This is Agriculture, a black metal band from LA, and their second album, The Spiritual Sound, following, I think it was a self-titled debut back in 2023. They've also released an EP in 2022, another one in 2024. I didn't listen to those because they're EPs, I don't bother with EPs. But yeah, this is best album of the weekend, and again, another reason why I'm not really looking forward to sorting out my top 30, because this is potentially going to be in that top 30, I don't know, A+. Really fucking love this one. It is the black metal stuff that they experimented with last time, but one complaint I had about their last album was that it was way too short. This album has 10 songs, just 1 second under 44 minutes, right? I mean, depending on where you look. Actually, no, I think I found out about it on Wikipedia, which usually has the times more accurately. So let's start with the instrumentation. It is black metal at its core, but it also has these nice post and black gaze elements as well. And honestly, I'm surprised at how restrained it is. It uses all the elements pretty much the entire time, but keeps them, like, not bottlenecked, but, like, focused. And it's really handled quite well, and I quite like the structure too. I was actually surprised at how deep the well of ideas is on this album, and the fact that the sound is versatile enough to afford the luxury of exploring those ideas is just a great sense of pacing, and a massive improvement over their debut in terms of pacing. I also quite like the lyrics. There's a weird sort of theme, mostly going over stuff like suicide, loss, and queer history and Zen Buddhism. And I think it's because there's 2 vocalists to the band, one writing about issues from the past and the other writing about issues from the present, but somehow issues that correlate to each other and work really well, and not just like a jumbled, juggly mess that they could have been, because some bands do try this, and it doesn't always work. Well, I can't really think of any bands that have tried it, but I'm pretty sure someone has. I'm pretty sure I've covered a band that's tried to do it, just didn't nail it, but these guys fucking nailed it. I also really fucking enjoyed the performances, no half-arsing there, but I will highlight vocalist Leah B. Levinson. She's one of the 2 vocalists, and her versatility is fucking incredible, but again, the entire band is just really good together. And I like the production too. It was handled by the band, and, really well. I don't know if their debut was produced by the band, I don't think it was. But the fact that they produced this one themselves just let themselves be creative with how the soundscapes will work and just how well put together it is. Just really nice and organic in terms of its flavour. So yeah, I quite like their debut. I didn't really go back over it a whole ton, but like, that really felt like a building block to a better sophomore effort. And yeah, I highly recommend this one. Really fucking good. Next up, we have another sequel album, Dodie with her second go, not for lack of trying. I guess technically it's her third album because she put out a full-length back in 2023 with a band, which I meant to listen to but just never did. But Dodie, I quite like Dodie just in general. She's lovely. She's a really good indie pop artist with a sort of acoustic lean. Give this one a B+. I feel like this album is weird for me. I feel like it's improved in some areas, but it also holds itself back in others. So let's go over the lyrics first. I quite enjoy them. It's the same mostly from her debut, going over her dealings with her bisexuality, relationships, and love, and being honest with a really nice feel to the writing. It's actually quite realistic and human in how it is, and Dodie is really good at writing that. She's also a really good storyteller and performer, and, she's got a really good voice. I don't have okay, I do have a crush. She's lovely. She's just a really nice person. She seems nice, at least. I've never met her, but she seems really nice. But also, she is legitimately really talented and a really good writer and a really good performer. So, gotta give credit there. I like the instrumentation, but I feel like it doesn't veer to too many different places. It's the sort of same stuff from last time, quite light on guitar and keyboard and even drum work at points, and not really a big sense of urgency, but it's really good at setting the vibe, and I think that can sort of hurt the pacing. I think it's got solid moments, but it really feels stuck in one gear a lot, and there are a few too many songs that feel way too short as well. It's only got 12 songs, so it's not like overly long in terms of that, or even in terms of length, like 38 minutes 13 seconds. I don't mind bringing up length so much lately, but yeah, not it doesn't go into too many interesting places, for lack of a better term. It sticks to what it does, but it does that thing quite well. I do enjoy the production in some areas. That was produced by Dodie and someone named Joe Rubel, and it has a really warm tone, which matches what the album's going for, and it feels really comfy, and it just feels really nicely layered, and I think that's probably the most important thing about the album. It's not exactly, like, exciting by any means, but I won't call it I won't call it entirely boring. It's got a lot of really good moments to it, and Dodie's still really good at this stuff, but, like, I think it's more of a genre thing, because this is not something I actively seek out, but it's something you just want to listen to if you just want to vibe and just feel all cozy and stuff. If you like a nice, comfy, comfy, cozy, comforting album, I recommend listening to this or Dodie's debut, which was called Build a Problem. But I feel like this one, again, doesn't really change too much from her last album, but I still think it's solid and a really good showcase of how good Dodie is at this kind of thing. Next, we have a band called Idlewild and their self-titled 10th album. This is actually a band that's been around since 1995, I believe. And they're a Scottish band who do indie rock. And I don't know what it is with Scottish bands doing indie rock so much. You would think that they would get more of a foothold in, like, folk metal or something. Give this one a B+, though, for my first album by them. I think it had some really good stuff. I like the instrumentation, there's really good melodies, and I actually quite like the synth work and how busy that feels, and I think it adds a nice textural thing to the album, so yeah, I'll applaud that, and I like the energy that it has too. I also like the lyrics. There's really good things about the sense of self and the idea of, like, where home is to you personally, and it's a really personal feeling theme, and apparently something that the band had been dealing with for a fair bit since their last album. I don't remember how many years ago that was, but I don't think it was probably around 2020, it might have been shortly before that, I'm not entirely sure there, but it's got a really good wistful, almost nostalgic vibe, which I quite enjoy, and I also like the production, handled quite well, and I like the vibe that's set, and how much it boosts the sound, although I like the density on it, but I do want to point out something funny about this, which is the fact that, so the band produced this album, but for some reason the band's guitarist Rod Jones is listed as a separate producer, which I find a bit egotistically stupid and unintentionally funny. Like, you're in the band. Are you an exec producer? Like, surely if you are, right, then the entire band would be exec producers, because you're the only ones producing. There's no other producers credited, except for the band members, so someone try and make sense of that, because it's weird, right? It's really weird. I enjoyed the performances, the band are all quite solid, and I will highlight singer Roddy Woomble. Remember you're a Wimble. That's probably going to be the subtitle of this episode, fuck it. And he puts a lot of soul into his delivery, and he's got on his feel to him, but I do like the entire band, and Rod Jones is a really good guitarist too, and whoever does the keyboard work, they do a great job as well. And structure, I'm not super entirely keen on. It's probably my least favourite factor of the album. I think it has good bones, but a lot of the song placement just feels weird to me, and it can make the more experimental moments feel a tad disconnected. I do think it's got like a heart to it, I can't deny that, but some of the valves feel a bit off, for lack of a better term. So yeah, for my first album by these guys, and again, it's weird how many bands I stumble across that are from the UK. Scotland counts as part of the UK, I think, technically still, that have been around for a while that I'm just now finding out about. But yeah, well, I'm looking forward to maybe going over the past stuff. I don't think this was a bad album for me at all to get started with. Next, we stay to the UK, but we actually go to London in England for a debuting band. This is a band called Leap, with their first album, Entropy. This is also sort of an indie rock band with, like, sort of alt-rock and dancey, punky elements. And yeah, this one, a B+. I enjoy the instrumentation, first of all, a lot of really good energy to it, and it's, it's got this sort of, like, dancey, almost poppy edge, which I actually think added a really nice bit of texture to things. I actually quite like how that was done. There's really good drumming as well in general, and just really good performances. I will highlight frontman Jack Scott, who has a really distinctive sounding voice and a lot of charisma, and apparently he's been in other UK bands that sound similar to this. I'd never heard of him until I heard this one and like looked up a bit more about it, but yeah, really good stuff from him, and definitely feels like the right kind of person to front this kind of style of indie rock. It just fits. I quite like the lyrics. There's a really good theme of hope through a struggling time, and it's a weirdly dark tone, but I feel like it was a bit off considering how upbeat the music can feel at times. It's actually a surprisingly positive sounding album, even if the writing doesn't fit that positivity fully. I do enjoy the production though. I feel like it's got this really good fluid vibe to it on the mixing. It was handled by a guy named Tom Leach, who I think is one of the band members. And yeah, really good sheen to it, which I think makes the sound feel a lot bolder and quite strong. I also quite like the structure. It's got this really fun energy to it that carries it and goes for a familiar feeling approach, I will admit, but it does add just enough to keep things interesting and mix it up and keep things quite nice and spicy. And yeah, I think this is a really good example of what a debut should do, especially considering how much potential there is on display, but the band don't give everything away just yet. You want to save like giving the secret away for like a second album, and I hope these guys put a second one soon, because this was a really good first go. And finally, we're in Sweden for a band named Orbit Culture and their new album Death Above Life, and I will admit, I did think this band was around a lot longer than 2013, but apparently that's the year they first formed, which I was quite shocked by. This is their fifth album, and I'm giving it a B+. I thought this was some proper good stuff. I'm starting a lot of these with I thought, I don't care. I quite like the lyrics, so I'll start with those. It's really nice when death metal bands do not talk about things that are specifically around like death and gore and murder. Then again, this is a melodic death metal band with metalcore and groove elements, but I actually like that this one talks about themes of mental health and struggle with addiction and grief. It's actually quite nicely nuanced, and again, I know we've had a fair share of it in terms of like death metal adjacent genres this year, but can we still keep getting it, because I'm sick of death metal albums being about murdering everybody. I do quite enjoy the instrumentation. I like the focus on melody, and there's some really good breakdowns, and there's a solid technical feel to the guitars. Yeah, really good mix there. I like that it does have a good metalcore like backing to it, for lack of a better term, but it sticks mostly to the melodeath, which is quite nice. Also, I enjoy the production. I wish it didn't overdo things as much as it does at times, but it does have a good feel in places, and the producer's name is Buster Oderholm, and there's just something hilarious about a Swedish person named Buster, but he handles the mix quite well. I jumbled over my words there. Structure is also pretty good. It's got all these things that it does with the metalcore and groove and melodeath stuff, but I feel like it could have been put together better, especially considering that the album is the longest in this video, 10 songs, not the longest there, but in terms of time, with 53 minutes and a whopping 4 seconds to add to it. Yeah, it feels like there could have been a bit more done with what's there, and a lot of it feels a bit fillery in some places, to be honest, especially in the middle of the album. It's still solid though, and I do quite like the performances. The band put in some really good work, and I will highlight drummer Christopher Wåhlstedt, which is more of a German-sounding name than it is a Swedish one now that I think of it. But still, he does a really good job, and I quite like the band cohesion, and there's just, a really good sort of, like, through line to it that could have been handled a bit better, but, like, this is a band still fairly early on into their career. This is only their 5th go. 5. Pick number 3, my lord. But really good stuff from them. I don't know where that was going. Really good stuff, and for my first album by them, again, I don't think it was a bad first go for me. Next is favourite album cover and favourite song. Favourite song I would have to give to The Reply from The Spiritual Sound by Agriculture. Just a really great, like, 6.5-ish minute closer. I think it might be longer than that, but it's the closing song of that album and a really good way to end things. Best cover, well, favourite cover personally in my opinion, it's between 50 Lions and Orbit Culture, but I think just because it looks cooler, I'm gonna go with Orbit Culture's album cover. It just looks really nice. It looks a bit like a sort of weird deer xenomorph thing from Dead Space. I don't know how else to explain it, although I fucking love 50 Lions one as well, because I love a cover that's inlaid into like a band logo. It's just really nicely done, and I like looking at it. And the fact that it was all drawn by hand too, fuck yeah, I love that shit. And next for this weekend's listening list and the albums I'll be covering for next week, I'm hoping, again, always subject to change, we have Black Eyes with Hostile Design, Friendship Commanders with Bear, Mob Deep with Infinite, Testament with Parabellum, Weak and Friends with Feels Like Hell. I only just found about this one yesterday, so I had to rush to add it to my weekend list for this year, and Yellow Card with Better Days. And that'll about do it for me. The next thing you'll see me for will be tomorrow, the Go Home Show for Harsh Environment, and yeah, still busy getting to work on all the movesets, but I am getting there. I'm glad I've managed to get most of the work done so far. So, yeah, gonna be doing that for pretty much the entire weekend. And I'll see you all tomorrow for that, and hopefully on Saturday for what may be my last Citizen Sleeper stream, because I might be able to finish the game by then. I'm not sure. I was expecting to finish it last weekend, didn't work out, but it still could. So we'll see, but I'll see you all for that. As always, thank you for watching, you're awesome. Bye-bye.